My name is Steve Martin. I'm a captain with the Boise Fire Department. The night that they've been asked me to talk about is 5/31 of 2003. I was captain on Truck 1 that night when we got called to a structure fire about 2200 hours. The truck, there's only two in the city, and it was coming from downtown, and the structure fire was about 7 minutes away from us. The first in engine arrived. It was less than a block away from them. So when they made entry, their visibility was pretty good, and there was some fire and smoke showing from the rear of the structure. The structure was about a 5 occupancy strip mall, small, not very large. The occupancy on the extreme right, as you look at the building, the 3 side, was a roofing materials supplier. The second one, which is the occupancy that we entered, was a second-hand Watt nut shop, just full of junk. And the one next to it was a leather and lace, which is where we tease about. And then there was a bookstore beyond that, I believe. We arrived about 7 minutes after the initial fire attack. So the engine company had about a 7-minute head start on us. We were assigned to ventilate and to do a search. Again, it was 2200 hours, so we weren't expecting much in the way of a search. So I split my crew into Truck 1A and Truck 1B and told the other 2 guys, Truck 1B, to look for a ventilation opportunity. They were going to probably go to the rear of the structure and open up the back, and then we would just search toward the back and exit through the rear was our plan. Myself and my hosesman entered the front of the building. It was just pretty much a straight through rectangular occupancy with an office in one corner. We opted to do a left-hand search pattern. We had a thermal imager with us, and so we scanned the store and saw that it was full of a lot of debris. When we entered, the smoke conditions were extremely heavy, but the temperature was fairly moderate. It wasn't that hot. But visibility was 0 without the thermal imager. With thermal imager, we could see a little bit, and so we opted for a left-hand search, went into a little alcove at the side of the structure, and we started trying to make our way back. But this shop was full of just an amazing amount of stuff. The aisleways between the shelving units were narrower than a fireman with an air pack on. So as we were attempting to make headway on our hands and knees, we were knocking over a lot of stuff and making quite a mess and having a really difficult time making headway. We suffered through that for a few minutes, maybe as many as 5, I don't think quite that long. When I realized the left-hand search was kind of a failure, we weren't going to be able to make it around the building. So I opted just to get on the hose line and follow it back and find the attack crew, and then we would just simply search off the hose line from the fire backwards. That was the second plan. Picked up the thermal imager again to take a look, and by this time the smoke conditions had worsened. The occupancy on our Delta side, like I said, was a roofing materials place, and the smoke inside was really tarry, and the mask, I can remember the liquid black running actually down the mask, and as I went to wipe it off, it just smeared into a tarry-like substance, which rendered the thermal imager useless, and so we were just going on a blind crawl down the hose line. As we were making down the hose line, we had a very difficult time following that hose line, because not only have we been knocking material off the shelves, but the initial attack crew had also, and a lot of the material was on top of that hose. It was quite a fight. We probably spent another 5 or 10 minutes working our way back. About the time, what I guess, about halfway through the occupancy heading back toward the rear where the hose team was, where engine 9 was, I heard a door fall. It sounded like a roll-up door, and so I knew that Truck 1B was successful in opening up the back of the structure. So I expected relief in the smoke conditions any second, so we continued to push on, even though conditions were starting to get really, really bad, and we were starting to get indications of low air. I figured it would be easier to continue right on out the back, find the hose team, and tell them that things were getting nasty if they didn't already know, and move out the back of the structure. So we continued on our way. I was leading. My hosman was behind me. I could feel him physical contact on my foot as we crawled down the hose line. At one point, I actually think I crawled through the frame of a bicycle. Things were so intense and trashed and such a debris filled. My low air alarm vibra alert started to sound before I actually found the engine company in the back. But again, I wasn't alarmed because I knew I would be just heading out the back of the structure, and I knew we were getting close. A few minutes later, or sometime later anyway, I finally ran into the captain of Engine 9. He was standing he was standing erect because the heat was still fairly moderate, although visibility was absolutely zero. I asked him how things were going, and he said he didn't have enough hose to make a good hit on the fire, that his hosman was about 10 feet in front of him, trying to bank the water in. It was kind of a void space, the fire working in the attic, up the back wall into the attic of the structure, and then we had fire involvement, which we didn't know, in the structure to our D side. I discussed the problems with the captain of the engine of getting to him and how much trouble it was going to get back out, and that we were already on low air. And I asked him if he had an opening in the back, and he said they hadn't found one. And so that door that I heard fall apparently wasn't in the occupancy that we were in, and that was further confirmed to us because our smoke conditions never got better. They actually got worse. The heat started getting a little hotter, still not to a point of concern. So I told him our best bet was simply to leave. We weren't going to get control of the fire, at least not from our present position. I was thinking that we was going to have to open up the back and come in the back where we could actually hose on it, and that the search was going to be a non-successful, task. So we opted to, as we were making that decision, command came on the radio and called for an evacuation. Apparently we had lost control of that fire, which we knew, and it was burning in the attic above us. So it was actually ahead of us, or behind us and above us. And so that confirmed the fact that we needed to go out. So we dropped back down to our hands and knees and started heading out the hose line. Severance, my hosman, was now leading the pack. I was second, followed by the captain, I believe, of Engine 9, and then his hosman. I'm not sure the order behind me. It took a long time. This whole time I'm on vibra alert, and now knowing that I'm not going out the back of the building and I had a long way to the front of the building, I was starting to get pretty concerned. This is a point where I wish I had that moment back. I would have called for help at that point. But I still thought it was a short distance to the front. We were on a hose line that led to the front door. So even though I was short on air, I didn't think anybody coming in to help me would give me much of a hand. The way out was clear, and we just had to go there. And so we kept moving. We moved for a little bit of time. It's hard to guess. Time is all relative, I guess, when you can't see. We came to a point where we were starting to get what I thought was toward the front of the building, and Severance stopped. My hosman stopped. I asked him what was the problem, and he said he had piles and piles and piles of hose. And what had apparently happened is, as Nines had tried to make an attack on the fire, they were in by themselves on the nozzle, and they called for more hose. Well, more hose was stuffed into the building, but because of the debris fill and all the stuff that had fallen on the hose, they were unable to drag that hose that was stuffed in the front of the building to the back of the building where they could play on the fire. And so they went without that hose, and that hose made a big tangle toward the front of the building. So I knew we were close, so just kept talking to myself, calm down, we're fine. I told Severance just to go ahead and just search through the hose. I wasn't going to help him because 2 hands on a pile of hose is just going to mix him up. So I just sat back on my haunches and decided to do the skip breathing, just as we trained, all the things to conserve air, because I'd been on the vibrator a long time by this time. Checking my air supply was of no value because my mask was completely tarred over at that time. So I was just going by a kind of a vague timeline of how long I'd been on the vibra alert. As I sat there and waited, it seemed like it took forever, obviously, for him to pull his way through the hose. I offered encouragement from time to time. A few seconds after we got there, Engine 9 came upon us. I had my hand on my hostman's shoulder the whole time. I didn't want to lose him because we had no visual contact with each other. So I had a death grip on his shoulder. So as he searched through the hose, I wouldn't lose him. He wouldn't wander off. Engine 9 came upon us. They were moving pretty quickly, and they landed on us in a heap. I was pushed to the floor. I lost physical contact with my hostman. As I sat back up, I reached out and found him right away. He hadn't moved. And so I again grabbed hold of him and asked him how he was doing, and he answered he was fine and that he was still searching. Well, time was up. I had no more time, and I knew things were getting pretty serious. I knew that 3 big steps forward was out. But what I did at that point is I got on the radio and radioed command. I never called a mayday, but I radioed command and asked